Welcome to Friday, TGIF. It is the 19th day of September, 2025. Your day weather podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at WyomingAdvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. Well, pleasant weather through the weekend. We're going to have a good weekend to go check out those fall colors like you're seeing there from the snowy range. While colors may not be peaking this weekend, it's going to be a good weekend to go out and check out those colors. But we do have to deal with the remains of Tropical Storm Mario. This will be the case in the far west and basin states today and into Saturday. Then as the moisture drifts eastward, we're going to see an increase in scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially on Sunday in many areas. But it will be mild, it'll be comfortable, there'll be plenty of sun, but that moisture from Mario will be enough to trip things up a bit with a few showers and thunderstorms this weekend. We have a trough of low pressure and a cold front sneaking in Monday and Tuesday. Why do I say sneak? Well, a lot of times in my experience in weather forecasting is that when something comes in on Monday, it always catches people by surprise for some reason. So we're telling you, something's coming in Monday. And that's going to bring in some cooler weather, wet weather in many areas. So that'll bring a change up right on the first day of fall, which is going to be on Monday. We're going to have a quick warm up behind that system. And then behind that high pressure ridge, that little skinny high pressure that comes in behind that system Monday and Tuesday, we'll see a change in the weather the weekend after this one, or right around that first week of October. We continue to see signs that that's a transition period to where there will likely be some colder, more widespread colder weather, and the availability of colder Canadian air begins to really show up. Dusting of snows have occurred here this week over the highest elevations of Colorado, as you can see there from Pikes Peak. And yep, Sugarloaf there in the snowy range, dusted, sprinkled with a little bit of snow here from the cooler wet weather that came in through southern Wyoming earlier this week. Nice shot there out of Mammoth Hot Springs. That's not snow, those are the hot springs there. Beautiful shot there of a lightning strike in Arizona, or the moisture from Mario moving through the desert southwest, bringing some heavy rain and some flooding warnings to some parts of the southwestern United States. We'll show you more on that here shortly. Nice shot here along the Bighorns, and a shot from space. There's the moisture from Mario stretched out and showing up very easily. There's the gap, and there's the low pressure system that took all week to move on through in the upper Midwest. There you can see the subtropical moisture is impressive with this system. Now this is water vapor. This isn't necessarily showing you clouds, but showing you where the water is in the air. So you can see there's a good amount of moisture that's available in the atmosphere with those remains, even though we've got a high pressure ridge that's developing overhead. And the precipitable water, we've got some areas over 300% here today in the deserts. And so that's going to bring more rain to those areas with some heavier showers and thunderstorms. And we continue to have flood watches in effect for many areas of central California. This red area here this morning, that is a flash flood warning. And you don't get flash flood warnings in that part of the world very often, but when you do, they're pretty serious at times. It's right over Death Valley, one of the driest places really anywhere, and getting some very heavy rain overnight and early this morning, enough to issue flash flood warnings as that tropical moisture from Mario comes through. So today, 500 millibar pattern shows that weakness in area of low pressure in the west, the trough that's heading into the Midwest. A little sliver of high pressure is in between those systems. And as we go into Sunday, that little sliver of high pressure for the most part is there. But you see this little dimple right here? This is part of what's left of Mario coming across Wyoming and across and along and near the Continental Divide. That's why Sunday is going to bring a little bit of weather. Then this is the trough of low pressure and cold front that's going to come up over the high pressure like this, then take a dip and cut across the area by Monday and Tuesday. So we're going to really shift gears Monday and Tuesday after a fairly pleasant weekend of weather. This low holding off the California coast will continue to feed more rain into California early next week as well. Then when we take a look and stepping you through the next several days, this is where the shower and thunderstorm activity will be. Now, this is a little deceptive. These are lightning strikes, so we may not have a lot of lightning strikes with these showers and thunderstorms, but they will be big rain producers. So this is where we're going to go through today. And on Saturday, you can see that axis of moisture is lifting a little bit more now to the north. So that gets us through today. That gets us through tomorrow. On Sunday, the precipitable water is pretty impressive and it expands across the Intermountain West and the Great Basin states and gets kind of stretched out and spreads out to the east. So there's your shower and thunderstorm activity for Sunday, right along that axis of moisture. So as you can see, not everyone's going to get a thunderstorm, but there's going to be some popping up in some areas, so be prepared for that as you plan your weekend activities. Then as we get into early next week, there's that low sliding out of British Columbia and Alberta, and it's taking a track that's coming down and moving southeast really quickly, kind of going up and over that high pressure ridge. So this is where it's kind of sneaky. It's going to come in, and while it's not a terribly cold system for this time of year, it will certainly bring colder air in and some moisture. And then it's going to sweep southeast by Tuesday, moving right down the Front Range of Colorado and then heading out into the plains. We still have that low that's just sitting there off the coast of California. So things are getting more busy for sure. And as that system comes in, it's going to cool off. These are the temperature anomalies by 6 p.m. on Monday. So you can see that parts of Wyoming and Colorado here in the Intermountain West, Monday and Tuesday, will be significantly cooler. I wouldn't call it cold, but certainly very autumnish, very autumn-like rather, for the first day of fall on Monday. And then by Tuesday, that cool air is backed up against the Front Range and the Continental Divide. So it's going to get soupy. And temperatures are impressively cool, but this is still not a widespread frost freeze situation over a large area. But you can see North Park, Colorado will be down into the upper 20s. We've got some 30s elsewhere, some 40s everywhere else, especially over the higher terrain. And there will be precipitation. As upslope goes on, there could be a little pocket of heavier moisture there in western Nebraska and far eastern Wyoming, and then showers and thunderstorms elsewhere. This is precipitation that falls Monday, Tuesday. So there's more rain for California. And as that little system comes in, again, sneaky, it is going to be producing some pretty good weather in terms of clouds, cooler temperatures, and precipitation, and a little bit of high country snow, especially as we get into the Monday night, Tuesday morning time frame across parts of Colorado and Wyoming and the Uintas of Utah. Beyond that, there's our quick warm-up. We have this high pressure ridge, a little sliver of it will bring a brief warming trend into the region after the front. So Wednesday through Friday of next week looks pretty nice. However, there are those strong jet stream winds. These are where the changes are brewing out in the North Pacific. So if we look at the 24th of September, which is next Wednesday, and then we go a little bit further down the road, by next weekend, those stronger jet stream winds are becoming a little bit more robust. And when they flatten out like this, after this pattern of a more what we call zonal flow takes place, there's going to be a buckling of the jet stream. And that's going to happen right at the end of September and into early October. And the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, this is something we show you in the cold season. We look at the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, the Pacific North American oscillations to kind of show you in the long term where there's going to be a change. And when you look at graphs like this, when you see a significant change in the oscillation in the Pacific, and what this oscillation is telling us is where the high pressure systems are and where the low pressure systems want to be. When we see it go negative like this is when we get the high pressure areas in the Eastern Pacific, which then opens the door to Canadian cold. And this begins next weekend and into that first week of October, going pretty strongly negative, changing, then going pretty strongly negative again. So if we were to just kind of graph where the high pressure ridges are going to want to be, right at the end of September into early October, the Eastern Pacific will favor a high pressure ridge, which is a cold signal. But we don't have any details, too far out for that. But right at the end of the month, right into that first week of October, looks like a shift to much colder temperatures and unsettled weather in the western United States. We'll have to wait and see, and that's what next week is for, to track that and keep an eye on it. Have yourself a great weekend. See you Monday.